Good evening. Welcome to the N.E.A.R show. I am your host, Keith Johnson, the co-founder of New England Anomalies Research. And this evening, we're going to be discussing, well, we usually discuss topics of the paranormal and related subjects. This is more of a haunting subject that we're going to be talking about. And it's going to be about true crime, serial killers, and what makes it tick and things like that. And I have a very knowledgeable guest with me, my good friend, Mr. Ray Dowaliby. Give me a hand, Ray. Thanks for being here. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Yep. And Ray, of course, is the husband of Lisa Dowaliby, who you're familiar with. She's a member of N.E.A.R, and she's been on our show before, and former cast member of Ghost Hunters, and so on. But this is a particular interest of Ray and friends of ours too, like a good friend Michelle, very knowledgeable about such topics. And I think a lot of people are very interested in why does this happen? What makes people tick when they become serial killers? Are they born this way, or is it something in their environment? There's all sorts of reasons, and
they say that there's markers, that there's behavior as a child, like the first years of development.
Yeah.
You would see things like the typical thing, they start off with bedwetting.
Okay.
If that doesn't stop,
yeah,
then the progression goes to like harming animals.
Yeah.
Or even like if they have siblings, that they harm their siblings' dolls, or they're just looking for that behavior, but then it progresses.
Yes.
And then, like in the case of, like I said, what comes to mind is Dahmer.
Yeah,
and how his infatuation with taxidermy, and his father encouraged it, that type of thing. So, I mean, you've got things like that kind of like today would be red flags all over the place, but back in the 1960s, maybe it wouldn't be as big. It's boys being boys or whatever.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I was just late this afternoon, I mentioned to Sandra, people think that, usually say that serial killers, the first official serial killer was Jack the Ripper in England in 1888. But how about people like Henry VIII and Elizabeth Bathory and Vlad the Impaler? How come they're not known as serial killers? Because they were royalty? It's good to be the king.
Like with Henry VIII. Henry VIII had reasons for his murder.
Right,
and that was because there was no divorce.
Right.
So he's off with her head.
Yeah.
So there it goes. And but that he had a reason for it. It wasn't just a compulsion.
Random, compulsion,
Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler was trying to show his dominance. And his was also revenge.
Yes.
Because it was if you wanted to call it genocide, that's what he was, because the people that went and killed his people, he was going to kill their people.
Yes.
And the display of the bodies, the impaling, that was to deter anyone from thinking that they could take him over.
Right.
And then who was
Elizabeth Bathory? She was the.
She thought that she could
have eternal youth and beauty,
cure old age by bathing in virgin blood.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's that probably is the reason why it's not a serial killing, but more of a psychosis.
Right. Right.
But serial kill, the compulsion.
Yes.
The compulsion. Need to kill.
Right.
What fuels that need to kill, and what actually takes you from knowing right and wrong, and then knowing that what you're doing is wrong and still doing it anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, nobody has an answer for that.
Exactly.
They have explanations.
Many theories,
explanations for a theory. But I mean, there's a lot of twisted individuals out there, but I mean, you're really not hearing much of it now. Yeah. Because they're getting caught quicker. They don't have time.
Exactly. Exactly. So usually it's shootings. It's shootings
like spree killings.
Yeah.
Like the last I remember, but believe it or not, my second daughter Maya was born the day the snipers were caught.
Really?
Yeah, remember, like, was it in like the Washington, D.C. area?
Okay, yes.
Maryland. Right. They were going around, driving around, and just killing people. But that's spree.
Yes.
So there's, I don't know, I mean, I honestly don't know the difference between how they categorize spree and...
Yeah. But you mentioned Jeffrey Dahmer, and of course, most of us are familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer, and some specifics on him here. That I have a famous quote from him, quote from Jeffrey Dahmer. "Why are people racist? We all taste the same."
No.
You know? And that's a quote from Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah,
as you know, he was into cannibalism and necrophilia, and
well, what he wanted to do was create someone that wouldn't leave him.
Yeah.
He didn't start off as a killer. He wanted to create zombie lovers.
Wow.
So he drilled into their heads and poured some type of acid in to try and neutralize the brain so they would be docile and follow his every whim. And that's how it started. But then every single one of them died.
Yeah.
So I think one of the escapees, the police actually brought back to him.
Yeah.
And so it goes. He didn't make it.
What amazes me that he went on doing this for so long without getting caught. And it's not like he'd never been in custody.
Just remember, though, there was no technology like we have now.
Right.
I mean, and it's actually very racially motivated. I mean, even that's why there's a lot of people who dislike the fact that Netflix put this series out.
Yeah.
What I took from it was you saw what was happening with the people around him.
Yeah.
And the families. They actually portrayed the families more than they glorified Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
So his neighbor was sounding the alarms, and nobody would listen to her based on race. So the cops especially were very racially motivated, and they thought, hey, well, it's, you know, same sex, African American, so they didn't give them any credibility.
Yeah.
They had solved it prior to him getting caught in 1990.
Yeah.
You know.
What if most of his victims had been, say, female and Caucasian? What do you think would have been?
Oh,
different?
it absolutely would have been. It would have been top priority.
Yeah.
It would have been top priority. If it was female Caucasian, it would be just like the way Bundy was pursued.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been, again, I think it was very racially motivated. And the fact that they were homosexual males.
Yes.
So they didn't get the top priority like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white female would have gotten.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And he was also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal and the Milwaukee Monster, and killed and dismembered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. Is that correct? And he was, of course, eventually killed in prison at age 34, and killed by Christopher Scarver at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. Now,
he was bludgeoned.
Yes.
In the weight room. So he had a cleaning detail that he was doing, and then this guy came in and told him, "I'm going to be the guy that's going to kill you." And I think one of his last words was, "Go ahead, do it." Yeah. I guess Dahmer was quite the troublemaker and ran his mouth in prison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was. He doesn't come across that when they interview him. He comes across very mild-mannered and very matter-of-fact. But in prison, I believe he was very boisterous, very rude, and was a troublemaker, and he was causing problems. But I think that was basically to try and throw everybody off. But this guy was not having it.
Right, right, yeah.
So he pretty much ended him.
Yeah.
And that was he went out the way he took people out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned his dad did teach him how to do taxidermy and everything like that.
Yeah, they would find roadkill.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would pick up roadkill and he would encourage it. He would, you know, and that's what, and he started with the animal killing.
Yeah.
And I think his first victim was a hitchhiker. So.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I think that might have been accidental. But
he was just trying to subdue him, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just went on from there. And
like once somebody's in that situation with him, he no longer has complete control.
No, he doesn't have control.
Yeah.
There was one victim that I think he didn't even remember killing because he would drink so much. He would black out. So he woke up in a hotel with a body next to him, and he didn't know how he did it or why he did it. But
so he was self-medicating and just, oh man,
he was basically trying to kill his pain.
Yeah.
But because he was, you know, he didn't know how to deal with his homosexuality.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how the story goes, I believe.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of, you know, in his life and his time, I guess that would have been considered a faux pas, you know, too.
Yeah, I mean, but 70s and 80s, it still wasn't acceptable, but it wasn't as bad as, say, the, you know, 40s and 50s.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah, but his main purpose was trying to create someone that wouldn't leave him and that would be able to do what he wanted to do, like something, like a pet he could keep in the house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subservient.
Yeah.
Be at his whim and
yeah.
everything. What do you think there could have been some intervention at a certain time in his life that would have kind of set him on another track? And if he'd gotten the proper therapy or intervention?
You know, I can't really answer that because, like I said, once you cross over, how do you fix it? He even said himself that if he was removed from the institutional prison, he would go back to doing it because he couldn't fight the compulsion. So what is that compulsion driven by? How can you stop that? How can you stop somebody from doing that other than incarcerating or death penalty?
It's like an uncontrollable force or habit that he seemed to have.
And I think it all stems from that first time. Once they cross the line, they said a lot of them say it gets easier and easier and easier. So,
wow.
And there's been quite a few serial killers, but like, I think it's harder now because of the technology we have.
Yes.
Everywhere you go, you're on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has a phone. So in every phone is a GPS. So it's harder and harder for somebody to drive their car down the street without getting videotaped by a Ring camera.
Right.
There's cameras on telephone poles down the street. There's, especially if you're in an area, in a suburban area where there's crime.
Right.
Now they're putting cameras everywhere. The eyes in the sky.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to be, I think, the most successful serial killer now would have to live in a rural area.
Yeah.
That's because there's no inner city unless they never leave their complex.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and mentioning Ted Bundy.
Yes.
You know, Theodore Robert Bundy.
Again, he had the time frame he was operating in was working to his advantage.
Yeah.
Because he had carte blanche. He could go anywhere, he could do anything, and he was charismatic. He was very easily likable.
Yeah, well, he's known as was known as the poster boy of serial killers. I mean, you know,
he was.
He was studying law. He was, like you said, he was charismatic, good-looking, charming.
And that's who he preyed on, dark-haired co-eds.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, they say 20 to 30 confirmed, but there could be as high as 36 victims.
Yeah.
And I know one of them was a 14-year-old girl. So, and that was I think, that was it.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones that got him the death penalty. Once he got caught in Florida, Florida has instantaneous death penalty. But he escaped a few times.
He was in prison for quite a while, like 9 years, I believe.
Well, he was executed in '89.
Yeah.
I remember that well. We actually, where I was working, we listened to it on the radio.
Oh.
Yeah, it was one of those things that it was like everybody was. I mean, we made T-shirts, "Burn Ted, Burn."
Yeah, there was people camping out outside the prison.
The prison. It was like a big deal. But I mean, he was brutal. He was very. The thing that got him was he bit a victim.
Oh. Okay.
So he bit a victim, and the teeth marks they matched.
And they made the dental impression.
Yep, and they matched it to the photograph, and it was identical. So that was that's what really got him. But he collected souvenirs. He did horrible things with these souvenirs. And he was definitely a sexual predator. And he lured them by gaining their trust. He would feign being injured. He had a fake cast.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, you saw Silence of the Lambs. So one of the serial killers in Silence of the Lambs did the same thing. So they basically shaped him off of Ted Bundy. But he wore the cast, and he would subdue them and then take them.
Now, I can very easily picture that. Ted Bundy comes along, he's got a stack of books, of packages, and he's a law student, a young law student, and he's trying to fumble to get in his car. Oh, I dropped my books.
That's exactly how it would go.
And I mean, who's not going to go over and help him?
Right, especially a young girl.
Yeah. And the big smile and everything like that. I'm so sorry, I just didn't, it's just...
And then he broke into a sorority, and that's like, I forget how many, but he like killed all but one that he went after. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But and like I said, I think they're saying upwards to 36 victims total.
Wow. Now he was denying it. So he was claiming he's innocent for years
until he finally confessed. And it's like, I think Netflix also has the Ted Bundy tapes. And you can listen to him confess.
Right. And he started out by following people. Without violence, just following them. And then that compulsion grew and grew.
But he was savage. He was savage. He turned into a creature. I think one of the quotes of his when he was in court is like, "Sometimes I feel like a vampire."
Really?
And there's it's just, he turned into a completely different person. He just, the switch flipped, and he went completely bananas.
And yet, he was married for a time, correct? He had a girlfriend.
Well, he had a girlfriend, a fiance.
Yeah.
And then he did marry a woman when he was in prison. So he was technically married to her. She was his advocate. And that's he had fans.
Yeah.
And she was his biggest fan, so they ended up getting married.
Why do people, like these serial killers, attract fans? Like, there's a draw there, and...
That's a good question. It's just, I don't understand what the attraction is. Do you know that the person, I mean, some of them legitimately think they're innocent, but then there's some that's just attracted to the darkness. It's, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. It's like, there's people that get in toxic relationships that know they shouldn't be in it, but they're addicted to it. It's just like the same compulsion that the killer has to kill. These people have this compulsion towards darkness and toxicity.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it's a quote from Ted Bundy. "We serial killers are your sons. We are your husbands. We are everywhere. And there will be more of your children dead tomorrow."
When was this quote, do you know?
I don't know when he made it, but that is a quote from, I assume it was towards the end.
It had to be. Yeah. It had to be, because he was started to spill his guts, so to say, before he was executed. Yeah, he was definitely a brutal one. Yeah. I think he had a dozen heads at one point. He had 12, I think.
Bundy did, huh?
Bundy did, but he would go and revisit his kills.
Was there ever any indication of remorse from Ted Bundy? I mean, besides originally proclaiming his innocence and everything, but I mean, when he was nearing his own execution, was there any sign of remorse that he was truly sorry for what he had done?
I think he was sorry for hurting his fiancée, because I think that was his only hold on reality, because she had a daughter, and he got close to the daughter too, and I think. But I don't think there was any remorse for what he did.
Right.
I honestly don't think that, like victim remorse. I don't believe there was any. I mean, we won't know.
Did he ever give any message to the victims' families at all?
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure what his last words were, like when he was just about to get electrocuted. That's something to look into, but I'm pretty sure. I think he pretty much, just like Gacy, I'm pretty sure Gacy went to the grave denying everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bundy, I'm not 100% sure whether or not he showed remorse in his confessions or not.
And Jeffrey Dahmer, he never showed any remorse, or did he? I don't know.
He, in the courtroom, he made a statement, you know, saying he wished he could take back the pain he gave to the families, but how true his words were, again, I mean, he didn't have any remorse while he was doing it.
Right.
So it's like, and like I said, in prison, he was a showboat, and he would flaunt his cannibalism in prison.
Really?
And just your quote, "We all taste the same."
Did he have a death wish, do you think?
I think in a way he did, because he knew he would never be able to go back.
Right.
Whether it be go back to what he wanted to be, or what people expected him to be.
Yeah.
So.
You know, you're familiar with the Dusseldorf vampire? I believe that was 1930s. Also known as the Dusseldorf Ripper, Peter Curtin.
It doesn't sound that.
He doesn't get a lot of press these days.
Oh,
you know,
well, from the 30s.
Yes, right. But he went on for some time. He didn't kill all of his victims, but in fact, that's what eventually led to his capture, that he let his last victim go. For whatever reason. He just said, "Do you know where you are?" And the young woman said, "No." And he let her go. I don't know why. He was married. I don't think he had any children, but he was married. And during his trial, he had to have a cage around him, you know, so people wouldn't attack him and everything. And he just he loved the feeling and the sound of blood flowing. He loved that, like decapitate. He used to start on geese and decapitating geese.
Again, the animals.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And he didn't always slice people. He also used a hammer, things like that, bludgeon people. But he never, like, whatever way he was wired, he was never rewired. There was never any rehabilitation or anything.
I don't think it's possible.
No.
I don't think there's a rehabilitation process. I mean, how do you take a murderer, especially a serial murderer, who's had multiple victims, and then try to make them normal?
Right.
How can you? How can you make anybody normal? How can you reverse anything for anyone? Like habitual. You're it's just like somebody who eats pizza only.
Yeah, right.
How do you get them to eat something else? I mean, it's a bad analogy, but it's hardwired.
And Peter Curtin was seemingly happily married, and when he realized he was about to get caught, he came home to his wife and said, "I want you to know I am the monster of Dusseldorf, and I'm going to be caught. So I want you to be safe and everything. You had nothing to do with this at all."
Well, at least he did that.
Yes, yes, he did.
Look at the BTK killer, Dennis Rader.
Yeah.
How many years did he go? God, from the 70s all the way to the early 2000s.
Really?
He got caught because technology advanced.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, he was active in his church. He was, I think he was not law enforcement, but he was, you know, somebody who liked to be in that type of like security field.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
but happily married.
Yeah, yeah.
And then off doing his murdering.
Mm-hmm. How did he wind up?
How did they catch him?
Yeah.
I believe it was he was writing authorities letters again, mm-hmm. and it was computer. So he used the church computer to send a letter to the authorities,
right.
And then not realizing that they had computer forensics, mm-hmm. they found out where it came from.
Oh, I see.
And so, mm-hmm. and then they found Dennis Rader. Mm-hmm. So,
Peter Curtin spent his last night writing apologies to his victims' families, saying, you know, please know that I am going to justice, mm-hmm. and you can take some consolation in that I'm getting what I deserve.
But was he remorseful?
He didn't seem remorseful.
I don't think.
Because he actually, I'll tell you, one of the last things he requested, because he had the, you know, the clergy and the last meal and everything, but one of the last things he requested to see a doctor that was going to be attending his execution. He wanted to know when, because he was guillotined, when my head comes off, will I be able to have any sensation of the blood flowing? And that's what he wanted to know.
That's what he was interested in.
Yes, that's what he was interested in. And I think the doctor told him, possibly, yes, you may, for a few seconds.
Well, supposedly you can still see and hear for like 20 seconds.
Right, right. So that's what he was looking forward to.
But he was looking forward to feeling the blood flow.
He briskly went out to the guillotine, walked very briskly, very energetic and everything. Well, we've only got less than a minute left, and I want to thank you for sharing your information, your opinions. I know you've researched this quite a bit, and all of us who research, we feel like we're just scratching the surface. There's always more going on. But
one of the things that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, like in the Jeffrey Dahmer case,
where
they were supposed to take his brain.
Oh, okay. And they didn't?
No. I believe the mother was opposed to it. The father wanted to do it because he thought that in the end, if they could find out why, mm-hmm. if they could study the brain, study abnormalities or whatever, then it would be a redeemable thing.
Right.
But the mother didn't want that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I definitely think that I think they would learn more behaviorally if they were alive, but how do you even start?
Exactly. Well, I hope you come back again, Ray, and because there's so much with the cover, you know, we could go on weeks and weeks.
Haven't even scratched the surface.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I do appreciate the discussion.
Yep.
And do come back and see us. Good night, everybody. God bless.